Pitfall the Mayan Adventure, which is essentially a port of the Genesis version, also available for the Super Nintendo, and I do believe the Jaguar, but with CD quality sound and a lot of animation made by the company known as Cryer Films.
Cool.
It's a platformer. It's okay. Upgraded my copy of Echo the Dolphin from the Genesis version to the Sega CD because way better music, and it has some CGI cutscenes. Best version of this game as far as I'm concerned. And The Amazing Spider-Man vs. Kingpin, which is its own Spider-Man game. This really isn't based on that Genesis Spider-Man game that came out that was just called Spider-Man. This is like a sequel, I do believe, but it is fun. And then a Sega CD game that I managed to snag at People Play Games. Because they were closing, they were doing a raffle. They were going to be doing a raffle on that Friday, which was the day that I had gone originally, and the next day on Saturday. For every $10 you spent, you got a raffle ticket for a $50 gift certificate for the store. I had bought so much stuff there on Friday that I absolutely had to come back that night to do the raffle. It was just me and one other guy that showed up with tickets for the raffle. The manager of the store, he looked at me and he's like, this guy's actually gonna win, you know, because he's got this wad of tickets. Or do you guys just want to split it? And I said, hey, you know what? I'll be nice. Let's split it. So we each got $25 gift certificate. And I spent it on this Mortal Kombat for the Sega CD, signed by Daniel Pacina, Johnny Cage. It's Mortal Kombat. It is a collectible. I had to have it, and the clerk told me, yeah, dude, I'm so glad you're taking this home. I ended up giving my old Sega CD copy to Musty Hobbit at the Midwest Gaming Classic because I didn't need it anymore because I had this. What I can't tell you is that the other raffle, which I did win on Saturday night, I used all that money to buy a specific Dreamcast game, which I will show you off in the next Dreamcasting episode. Did get some TurboGrafx games at People Play Games, one of which was JJ and Jeff, which I can't remember what the name of this is in Japan, but it was Caucasianized for the US. But it's a side-scrolling platformer. It has a weird sense of humor. I know there was like poop and pee jokes or something like that in the Japanese one, but they were toned down for the American version. It's one of those games I always wanted to play, never had a chance to back in the day, and now I can. The other is Tailspin. I haven't had a chance to try this one yet, but I do believe it is a side-scrolling shmup. Hopefully this one will fill the Tailspin void in my life. But off the interwebs, I picked up Double Dungeons, which I hear is Johnny Millennium's favorite game of all time. Silent Debuggers. The name alone made me say must have it. Haven't had a chance to play it yet, but I will. And lastly is Turrican. This is a really expensive game normally. I've had one on my watch list on eBay for the longest time, and it's over $100. But I love Turrican, so I absolutely had to have it. And then someone on Facebook popped up selling this for about half off. So I said, yes, give it to me. I need it. It's a rad side-scrolling run and gun. I love it. This next game was talked about in a PC Engine game video by GameSack, and out of all the games they talked about, this one was the cheapest, but it actually looked like the most fun, at least to me. Gamola Speed. Trust me, look up some footage for this, watch that video by GameSack, and you'll see why I bought it. And then the one that I was the most excited for is actually a game that I kickstarted about a year ago, maybe more. Actually, way more. FX Unit Yuki, the Henshin engine. Yes, this is the final version of what was called the Henshin engine. Due to a licensing issue, the name had to be changed to FX Unit Yuki, with Henshin engine being the subtitle. But I actually got the original demo with the Henshin engine name on it at the Midwest Gaming Classic in 2017. I met Sarumaru, who is the maker of the game, and he was really cool, handed me this demo version of it to play because I talked about how much I liked TurboGrafx games on the panel that year. I have not opened it yet. I will play it eventually. I need to break out my Turbo Duo to play this, but it is basically a parody of like all these different games from the TurboGrafx. And I hear that the soundtrack to this game is absolutely fantastic. Nothing for the Game Boy Color, but a guy that I worked with gave me a atomic purple Game Boy Color that looks like he wiped his ass with it back in the day and then left it in the garage for 12 years. Definitely need to clean this up. It didn't have the rear battery cover, but I ended up finding one on eBay for like $2, so I made it complete, but it does work, so I can't complain about that. And the one Gamecom game that I did manage to pick up, I got at People Play Games. I got it for like $5, and that's Duke Nukem 3D. I don't have high hopes. As you saw in the Midwest Gaming Classic video, I was on a 3DO kick. I have been for a while. I've been trying to get 3DO games as cheap as I possibly can because the prices for these things are starting to go up. I think people are finally starting to catch on, finding out that it is not this garbage system everyone thinks it is. It is actually super fun. I think it's super underrated. So I've been trying to get as many games as I possibly can. Like PO'd. It's a first-person shooter where you play as a chef, and your weapons are chef tools like pots and pans and things like that. I think this came out for the Saturn and the PS1. Can't be positive. I think at least the PS1. But this is the console that came out for first. Had to have it. Seal of the Pharaoh. This is another first-person game, but this one isn't really a shooter. This one's kind of like a first-person exploration game where you're exploring this pyramid. It seemed really interesting to me. I'm pretty sure there is some combat in this. There has to be. Otherwise, that'd be one boring-ass game. But this was not released on any other console, at least that I know of, so had to have it. It is a 3DO exclusive. Here's another exclusive, Escape from Monster Manor. Another first-person shooter, kind of reminds me a little bit of Wolfenstein 3D with ghosts. It is a lot of fun. I love the ambiance of the game, and just the way the whole thing is put together just feels right. This is a very cool diamond in the rough for the 3DO. Not thrilled about the developer of this game, but whatever. Mindscape made Mega Race. I do believe this was one of the first games released for the 3DO, which is why I wanted to have it. And plus, the price on this thing has been jumping up lately, and I don't know why. Got this off someone on Facebook, relatively cheap. And the thing that gets me the most is normally 3DO games, especially when it comes to these cardboard boxes, the games come in a jewel case, but not this one. This one comes in like a cardboard slip. But I'm not complaining. If this is the way they originally were packaged, that's cool, but it's a 3D racing game. And the last one is a game that I was super thrilled to be able to get my hands on. It is normally really expensive. I found someone slipping on eBay, and it is in such good shape, I was surprised that I got it for the price that I did. And that is Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Slayer. This is a first-person AD&D game kind of like Eye of the Beholder for a pretty powerful 32-bit system. The graphics look like they belong in a 16-bit Super Nintendo game, but I can't complain because 3D, D&D, okay with me.
Man, you corny!
Managed to get one Sega Saturn game, and it's pretty predictable because it's Mortal Kombat 2. Have to have all the Mortal Kombat stuffs. And for all the power that this console has when compared to the Super Nintendo and the Genesis and all that, the version of this game is not all that great. The controls are actually pretty bad, which surprises the hell out of me. You would think that this would be the definitive version. It is the closest you're going to get to the arcade, and it's kind of all right. Managed to add another PS1 long box to the collection, and that is Brain Dead 13. This is essentially a full motion video game, but in cartoon form. There's no live action actors at all. It's an interactive Saturday morning cartoon. RPG Maker, you get to make an RPG from scratch. There are stock assets you can use. You can make your own pixels, do whatever you want. You have to write out your own bubbles, but there's no keyboard, so you have to do it all by hand on the controller, which kind of blows. But you can make it as long and as complicated as you want. So if I ever do get burnt out on playing games, I can make one. South Park, no big whoop. Ape Escape, which is a pretty cool 3D platformer, which I never got into back in the day. This is one of the first games I do believe that used the DualShock. A lot of people don't remember that the original PS1 did not come with DualShock controllers. It was just a standard controller. Can't wait to try it out. 40 Winks, which I found at half-price books for about $2. It's a 3D adventure game, but the reason I wanted to get this was there was a Kickstarter to adapt this to the Nintendo 64. Since I'm not a fan of the Nintendo 64, I'm not going to kickstart anything for that console, but if I can buy the original game for it, I'm happy. Bravo Air Race. It's a racing game with airplanes. Sounded fun. Starwinder, the ultimate space race. It's like F-Zero, but not that good. Independence Day. Licensed game horror, right here. I know it's garbage, don't judge me. Found this at People Play Games, so I wasn't gonna pass it up, and that is Deception 3 Dark Delusion. I've never played the third game in this series. I hope they keep this series going because it is such a cool concept where you play as the bad guy.
I may be bad, but I feel good.
You live in this giant mansion, and the good guys are coming to burn you alive or whatever. You have to set traps for these people when they invade your house. Super fun, creative, cool concept, love it. Star Ocean, the second story. Got this at that brand new half-price books I talked about earlier. This was sitting in their cabinet, and I said, God damn, I've never had that game. I need it so bad. I also need to get the original game for the Super Nintendo. There's a translated version I think I can get repro-wise. But I hear it is a fantastic sci-fi RPG. Can't wait to get into it. I found this next one really cheap, which surprised the hell out of me, at a media store called The Exchange. It was about half the price as I normally see it on eBay. Mega Man Legends. Mega Man 3D RPG adventure. What? There's a sequel to this and a spin-off, and the fans have been bugging Capcom to make a third game, and I think there was one in development, but it got canceled. I'm one of the few people that never played it back in the day.
Shame!
This is new to me. Can't wait to try it out. And at People Play Games, I picked up a couple of imports. Ranma 1/2 Battle Renaissance. Never really read the manga, but the anime I was a huge fan of. It was one of the first anime I got into back in the early 90s when it first started to really pop up a lot in the US. The fighting games that came out for the Super Nintendo or the Super Famicom were actually really fun, so I could only imagine what one for the PlayStation 1 looks like. And since I have a Japanese PS1, I can play this. Ranma Tekken, yes. And the other one I got is one that Radical Reggie is always talking about on his channel. He's done, I think, a review of it. He constantly shows pictures of it all the time. I think it was actually a picture of him holding a copy of this was his avatar on YouTube for the longest time too. So he's kind of obsessed with this game, and that is Chaos Break. It's a survival horror game, not unlike Resident Evil. It is in Japanese, and I'm pretty sure that I can find a translation that I can read alongside the game while I play it. Can't wait to try this out because it looks fantastic, and Reggie talks it up so much I kind of said to myself at one point, I'm gonna have to track down a copy of that. I got it for I think $10. Said it once and I'll say it again, not a fan of the N64, but there are certain games I do want to get for the console. I would love to get it modded so I can actually play it on my modern television and have it not look like doo-doo smeared across my screen. Got a bunch of these games at People Play Games, really cheap because of that 25% discount. And also I found 3 of these on a Facebook group that were pretty cheap also, so I wasn't going to pass them up. So the ones I got off of Facebook were 007, The World Is Not Enough. It's a first-person shooter trying to be just like GoldenEye, although this is not the same game that was released for the PS1. I have that one. 4-player multiplayer on this and everything, although it's not as widely recognized as GoldenEye is, as being like a must-have game for the console. I wanted it because licensing, and I love James Bond. Rush 2 Extreme Racing USA. Donkey Kong 64. Got another game by Rare.
Oh, that's the stuff.
I was never into those collectathon games that were so popular on the N64, but it's Rare. I have to have it in the collection. I did finally try it out when I bought it. I was like, you know what? It's about time. Let's play this sucker. And I really enjoyed it. Surprising the hell out of me. I'm enjoying a Nintendo 64 game. What the hell is wrong with me? But there is one game I had back in the day that I really did enjoy, and that is Tetrasphere. I loved this back in the day. This was one of the few N64 games I had that got a lot of playtime that wasn't called Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. And the last one I got this from People Play Games, and that is Tonic Trouble. This was one of those 3D action games that was super popular during this generation. This is an N64 exclusive, so I wanted it. It's fun. It's also really clunky. Ubisoft really hadn't come into their own when it came to 3D yet. They should have just stuck to their Rayman games as far as I was concerned back in the day, but it's not bad. It's not great. It's decent. So one of the things I was talking about in that 10 game franchises that I never got into and what I'm going to do to make up for it video that I did, I talked about the Disney Illusion games. They had spun off into different directions along the way, and 2 of them were Magical Quest starring Mickey and Minnie and Magical Quest 2 starring Mickey and Minnie. There's also like a Super Nintendo game, and there's ones for other consoles too out there. Side-scrolling platforming awesomeness. I got these also from Nintendo 64. I picked up a lot of stuff from them over the past few months. These games are fantastic. I love them. Gotta have all the Star Wars things. Star Wars Jedi Power Battles. Radical Reggie actually turned me onto these games. Just before I was about to leave for the Midwest Gaming Classic, Reggie goes, hey, guess what, Chris? I got these hidden gem games that you really need to look into, and they're going pretty cheaply on eBay right now, so you might want to snap them up before I start talking about them. So I snagged them while I could. Special Forces and Special Forces 2 Back in the Trenches. These are made by a company I've never heard of called Hip Games. They look, on the surface, very bottom of the bin, like budget titles. These are clones of Metal Slug, and I love me some Metal Slug, guys. You know that. I love it.
You're not normal.
I watched a few videos of gameplay on YouTube before I decided to pull the trigger on them, going like, Reggie, come on, these look like garbage. I saw the cover art before I bought them. I was like, no, those look absolutely horrible. But those gameplay videos really made me change my tune. The music sounded fantastic. It looked super fun, and yes, Metal Slug-tastic. Picked them both up. Reggie talked about them. Price jumped up. And I picked up another awesome way forward game for the GBA, and that is Sigma Star Saga. Here's another game that is a mix of genres. It is a 3/4 view, like Legend of Zelda type adventure game, and a shmup. Love the music, love the graphical style. It is super fun. This is such a great game. Like Drill Dozer. I was so thrilled that I managed to snag this off of eBay at such a cheap price. The cartridge is really oddly shaped. as you can see, because it has a rumble feature built into it. It's a really cool side-scrolling action game. You can tell in these pictures, but the thing is, you've got like this drilling mechanic because you sit in this big drill machine to do your attacks, and it just seems like such fun. And I've seen so many people talk about it online. I absolutely had to have it. And you know what? I've played it. They are right. It is awesome. And the final game that I have for the GBA is something that I picked up at the same time I got Earthbound Beginnings. Mother 3. This is the third and final game in the Mother series, the Earthbound series, completely translated into English for the GBA. Cannot wait to play through all three of these games in a row. Got this from the Video Game Database, VGDB. I've always wanted to play these games. One of the reasons I've never really gotten super far into Earthbound was because I know it is the second game in a series, and I'm probably going to be missing some information because it is a sequel, so I wanted to be able to play through all three games in a row. Now I can. I haven't really been looking for PS2 stuff, at least not as much as I used to, because I'm kind of getting to the end of what I want to get for the console. There's still a lot of stuff I want out there, but it's usually pretty expensive or it's just really hard to come by. But I do find stuff now and then, usually at half-price books, which still surprises the hell out of me that I find such cool stuff there. Bujingai, the Forbidden City. From the cover, it looks like it might be a shmup. But it's not. It's a 3D beat-em-up, and it's actually not too bad. Taito knows what's up, man. Like I was talking about for the PS1, I picked up the first game in the series, and I also found part 2 at the exact same time. Now I can do RPGs in 3D. I already have the third game in the series, which is the last one in the RPG Maker series. There's also like Fighting Makers, which I do own for the PlayStation 1. I think there's a second one. Can't be positive, but it's just a cool idea that you can actually make your own RPGs and have other people play them. Xenosaga Episode 1. I do own the second game in the series, so now I'm on the first, and I just need to find the third, which is the most expensive of the three. Also need to get Xenogears for the PS1, and I'm good to go. While at a half-price books, a friend of mine highly recommended this game. Never heard of it before. Drakan, The Ancient Gate. It is part 3D beat-em-up and part Dragon Flight Simulator.
Oh.
And my friend Elizabeth swore by this, saying that she used to play it all the time back when it first came out, so I got it for I think $3 or $4, and I wasn't going to pass that up, so I said let's do it. In the 10 franchises I never got into and what I plan to do about it video, I was talking about this game in the series. I thought I owned it. Turned out I did not. So I rectified that immediately. Grandia 3. I ended up finding a copy of this for like $10 on eBay, so I picked it up. Two more games in this long-running series. I ended up finding them both on Amazon, sealed for about $3 each. Shin Megami Tensei Digital Devil Saga and Shin Megami Tensei Digital Devil Saga 2. Still sealed. Nintendo says these are probably some of the best ones in this series. And then Radical Reggie sent me a message on the Facebook right before he shot a Hidden Gems PS2 video with Metal Jesus and said, hey, these are the games we're going to be talking about. You might want to pick them up if you don't already own them before we do, and shit gets expensive. I checked out a few of the ones he listed. A couple of them were really pricey, so I wasn't able to pick those up. But I did manage to snag Firefighter FD18, which is a 3D firefighter game. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. Spy Fiction, which is a sci-fi spy game. And this one, Samurai Western. This one is absolutely crazy. Samurai swords, 6 shooters in the Wild West. And it's released by Atlas. Goddamn. Managed to snag this for a great price before it jumped up after they talked about it in their video, so super thrilled to get it. So I managed to snag a couple of decent GameCube games. Nothing too spectacular, awesome, whatever, but, you know, licensed stuff because, yes, like The Incredibles, and Driven, which is a movie I never knew had a video game adaptation. This was based on an F1 racing movie that starred Sylvester Stallone and was directed by Rennie Harlin that was so bad, it basically ruined Rennie Harlin's career. I'm a movie guy, don't judge me. And I even found out there's a version of this available for the Game Boy Advance. What the hell? I will have to pick that up also. But I hated the movie. I don't expect this game to be much better. But I just had to have it because it just shocked the hell out of me that this was a thing. Another game I got from Nintendo 64, The Magical Mirror starring Mickey Mouse. That's another one of those Magical Mickey games, so I had to have it. Only this one is in 3D. I upgraded my copy of the Sonic Mega Collection from the Player's Choice version to the Black Label version, and picked up Summoner Goddess Reborn. And it's either an exclusive for the GameCube or it's an adaptation of one of those games that came out for the PS2, so we'll see. And definitely the coolest thing I got for the GameCube is this little contraption right here. Eon's GameCube HD adapter. I got this from Castlemania Games, and what this is basically is a small little device that plugs into the ports on the back of your GameCube, and it exports everything out through HDMI into HD. While the games for the GameCube are not in HD, they do go up to, I do believe, like 480i or 480p, I think I. And you have to switch your game modes over into progressive scan mode for it to work. It doesn't work with every single game. but every game that I did try out, like F-Zero, all worked fantastically with this. Picture quality is so much better. Everything is so smooth and crisp, and I was going to do a video on this thing because I did get it the first week that it was released, but 5 million YouTube gamers did videos of this around the exact same time, and I said, you know what, I'm not getting caught up in that. I'll look like I'm following a trend, trying to be one of the cool kids. I'm not into that. So I figured I'd just mention it in this pickup video because it is awesome and it works, and if you have not picked one up and you love the GameCube as much as I do, you definitely need one. It's a little expensive, but it's worth it in the end. FX Unit Yuki!